I was sitting by the window when the letter arrived. The sky was cloudy and the wind was cold, making the trees shake. I didn't hear the mailman come. I just found the letter on the floor near the door. It was old-looking, with yellow paper and sharp black handwriting. My name, Elias Ward, was written in strange curly letters. There was no stamp and no return address. I picked it up carefully, feeling something strange in my stomach. It felt like the letter had been waiting a very long time just to find me. I opened it slowly, not knowing that everything was about to change. The message was short. "You are invited to Dargmoor Hall. Your help is needed. Come before the full moon. Lord Marin Vale." That was it. No details, no map, no reason why. I had never heard of Lord Marin, and I had never been to Dargmoor Hall. I looked out the window. The clouds were darker now. Something about the letter made the air feel heavy, like a storm was coming. I wanted to throw it away, but I didn't. Deep down, I was curious. Something about it pulled me in. I took the letter to my teacher, Professor Alwyn. He knew about old things, books, places, languages, and I trusted him. He looked at the paper, frowned, and sniffed it, like it might smell of danger. "This isn't a joke," he said. "This ink is rare, the writing is old. Someone serious sent this." I asked him if I should go. He didn't say yes or no. He just gave me a strange look and said, "If you go, keep your notebook close, write down everything, and don't trust the quiet in that house." The next day, I packed my bag. I didn't tell anyone else where I was going. I took clothes, a flashlight, my notebook, and the letter. The journey was long. First a train, then a bus, then a long walk through a place called Black Hollow. The further I walked, the fewer people I saw. Trees stood like statues on both sides of the road. The sun was fading behind thick clouds. I didn't have a map, but something in me just knew which way to go. It was like the letter was guiding me. When I finally saw Dargmoor Hall, I stopped walking. It was huge and dark, sitting at the edge of a rocky cliff. The sea crashed below, and fog curled around the towers like fingers. The windows were like watching eyes. I walked through a gate that creaked open on its own. The air smelled like wet stone and dead leaves. I knocked on the front door, heart beating hard. No one answered. I knocked again. Just when I thought I should leave, the door opened slowly, all by itself, and behind it, something waited. I stepped into the hallway and the door slammed shut behind me with a loud bang. My heart jumped. The inside of the house was dark and smelled like old books and wet wood. The walls were lined with paintings, but most of the faces were covered in dust or scratched away. A candle flickered on a table nearby, though I hadn't seen anyone light it. I called out, "Hello?" But no one answered, just silence and the sound of wind moaning through the cracks in the walls. The floor creaked under my feet. I felt like the house was watching me. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall, pale, wearing a long black coat. His hair was white as snow and his eyes were strange, too dark, too deep. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Elias Ward," he said softly, like he'd known me for years. "Welcome to Dargmoor Hall. I am Lord Marin Vale." His voice was smooth but cold like ice sliding across my skin. I nodded, trying not to shake. He didn't blink, just stared and waited like he was studying my soul. "I'm glad you came," he said, turning slowly. "The house has been very quiet." Waiting. That word again, waiting. It made me feel nervous, like I was late for something I didn't understand. He led me down the hallway without saying much. The lights were just candles, placed far apart, shadows stretched across the walls like long arms. I didn't see any other people, just dark furniture, strange paintings, and doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. I followed him, each step making me feel like I was walking deeper into a dream. We stopped at a small wooden door at the end of a narrow hallway. Lord Marin opened it slowly. "This will be your room," he said. It was simple, just a bed, a desk, a chair, and one dusty window looking out over the sea. "You must be tired. Rest now. Tomorrow the real work begins." Then he smiled again and walked away. His footsteps disappeared into the silence. I stood in the room, feeling the chill in the air. The candle on the desk was already lit, even though I hadn't touched it. I sat on the bed and opened my notebook. I wrote down everything I had seen and heard. It made me feel better somehow, like writing would protect me. But then, as I looked around the room, I felt something strange. The shadows didn't stay still. One of them seemed to move, just a little. I stared, but nothing changed. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was in the room. Not a person, not an animal, just a presence. I blew out the candle and lay down, but I didn't sleep. Not that night. I didn't sleep that first night. The wind howled outside and the old house creaked like it was alive. I lay in bed with my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Every so often I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway, but when I listened harder, they stopped. At one point, something scraped against my window, but when I looked, I only saw fog. I kept thinking about what Lord Marin said. The real work begins tomorrow. What work? Why me? I wanted to leave, but it already felt like the house wouldn't let me. The next morning was even darker than the night. Thick gray clouds covered the sky, and the fog outside hadn't moved. I opened the window and felt cold air rush in. The sea crashed far below the cliff, loud and endless. My clothes felt damp, and my breath turned white in the air. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I left my room and tiptoed down the hallway. The doors were all shut. No sound came from behind them. I started to wonder if I was the only living person in this giant house. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a long hallway I hadn't seen before. It was lined with bookshelves covered in dust. Some of the books were missing their covers. Others had no titles at all. As I walked through, I felt like the walls were moving closer, just a little. I heard a slow tapping, like someone's fingernail on wood. Tap, tap, tap. I stopped. The sound stopped. I took a few more steps. Tap, tap, tap. I turned around, but no one was there. My skin crawled. I walked faster. Finally, I reached a large room at the end of the hall. It was the library. Lord Marin stood by a fireplace, his back to me. He didn't turn around right away, like he already knew I was there. "Elias," he said, calm and cold, "your journey truly begins here." He turned and handed me an old leather-bound book. It smelled like smoke and time. The cover was blank, but when I opened it, I saw pages filled with strange symbols and drawings of faces with empty eyes. "This book," he whispered, "is why you are here." I looked up at him, confused. "What does it mean?" I asked. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "No one knows," he said, "but it speaks to those who listen closely. You will spend your days reading, learning, understanding." I didn't know what to say. The book felt heavy in my hands, not just in weight, but in something else, something unseen. I closed it and nodded. "Good," he said, "but beware. This house listens too. It hears the book, and it remembers." Then he walked away, his footsteps fading again into silence. I sat in the library for hours, flipping through the pages of that strange book. The symbols made no sense, but the drawings made me nervous. Some showed creatures with long arms and no mouths. Others showed dark towers surrounded by fog, like the one I was sitting in. One page had a drawing of a door with something behind it, something that had too many eyes. The longer I looked at the pictures, the colder the room felt. And sometimes, just sometimes, I thought the drawings moved a little when I wasn't looking. That night, I tried to sleep again, but something was wrong. The walls of my room felt closer than before. The candlelight flickered wildly, though the windows were shut tight. I kept hearing that tapping again, now faster. Tap, 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 coming from behind my desk. I got up, heart pounding, and looked under it. Nothing. I looked inside the closet. Still nothing, but then I heard the tapping again from the wall right behind my bed. I didn't check. I just pulled the blanket over my head and waited for morning. The next day, Lord Marin was waiting for me in the hallway. "You look tired," he said with a smile that made my stomach twist. "Some find it hard to sleep here, but in time the house will welcome you." I didn't like the way he said that, like the house was alive. He gave me a key and said it opened the lower library. I asked what was down there. He just said, "Older things, older than you can imagine." I didn't want to go, but I nodded. Something told me it was already too late to say no. I followed the hallway to a narrow staircase. It led down into the cold stone basement. The air grew heavy, and the walls were damp. Cobwebs brushed my arms. The light from my candle barely reached the floor. I found the door the key belonged to. It was made of black iron and covered in scratches. I turned the key slowly. The lock clicked like a bone snapping. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Rows of books filled the room, but unlike the ones upstairs, these weren't dusty. Someone had been using them. As I walked between the shelves, I felt like the shadows were breathing. One book lay open on a desk, its pages glowing faintly in the candlelight. On the floor beside it was something even stranger. A circle drawn in white chalk with symbols all around it. I bent down to look at it, but my candle flickered hard and almost went out. Just then, I heard a soft whisper near my ear. "Go back," it said. I spun around. No one was there. My heart was racing now. I had come too far, and something in this house knew it. The next morning, something strange happened. When I opened my door, the hallway looked different. It was longer. I was sure it hadn't been that long before. At the very end, I saw a new door. It was tall and made of dark wood with a rusted metal handle. I'd never seen it before, not on my first night, not during my exploring. A chill ran down my spine. The air near it felt colder, heavier, like it didn't belong with the rest of the house. I took a step toward it and heard a loud creak behind me, but no one was there. I walked slowly to the strange door. Scratched into the wood were 4 words: "Keep the silence bound." The letters were rough, like someone had carved them with a knife while shaking. I reached for the handle, but it wouldn't move. It was locked tight. I leaned my ear against the door and listened. Nothing. Just silence. But it wasn't a normal kind of quiet. It felt like something on the other side was holding its breath, watching me through the wood, waiting for me to come back. At breakfast, I asked Lord Marin about the door. He paused with his teacup in the air. "That part of the house is no longer in use," he said softly. "It's better that way." I asked if someone had scratched the words into the wood. He looked at me for a long time and said, "Some things are best left unread and unopened." His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, like a warning wrapped in politeness. I nodded, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The door was calling to me. Later that day, I returned to the hallway. I don't even remember choosing to go. It was like my legs moved on their own. The door hadn't changed, still cold, still locked, still silent. I tried the handle again, even though I knew it wouldn't work. As soon as I touched it, the candle in my hand flickered and went out. I stood in the dark, completely still. My ears felt full, like sound itself had been stolen. Then, just faintly, I heard something on the other side. Not words, not footsteps. Breathing. I ran back to my room and slammed the door shut behind me. I lit the candle again and sat on my bed, trying to calm down, but the image of that locked door stayed in my mind. I kept wondering what was behind it. Why did it feel like it was waiting for someone? Why had Lord Marin looked almost afraid? I remembered the whisper I heard in the basement, "Go back." But now something inside me whispered something else. Go forward. And I had the horrible feeling that one day soon, I would. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the breathing behind the door. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the wood. Just when I started to drift off, I heard something, not from the hallway, from inside the walls. A slow, dragging sound, like someone crawling through the narrow spaces. I held my breath. The noise moved across my room, stopped right behind my headboard, then vanished. I didn't move a muscle. The silence that followed was worse than the sound itself. It felt like something had stopped to listen. The next morning, I decided to look for answers. I went to the library again and searched for anything about the locked wing. Most of the books were useless, full of strange symbols and fading ink. But tucked behind a shelf, I found a thin black journal. No title. The pages were filled with sharp handwriting and strange drawings. One page showed the exact hallway with the door at the end, but in the drawing, the door was open. A figure stood just inside, eyes completely black, arms far too long. Beneath it, someone had written, "Do not let it out." I quickly hid the journal in my bag. I didn't want Lord Marin to see it. Just as I stepped away, I heard footsteps behind me. Light, but fast. I turned around. No one. I looked again. One of the books on the floor had fallen open, pages fluttering on their own. Then I heard it, whispering, coming from every direction. Not loud, but close. "Let us in," it said. "We are so quiet now." I ran out of the library without looking back. My heart was beating like a drum. That evening, something new happened. My door, which I always locked, was open when I returned. Just a little, I pushed it slowly. Everything inside looked the same, except for one thing. On my pillow, someone had placed a small brass key. I picked it up with shaking fingers. It was cold and heavy and covered in tiny symbols I couldn't read. I knew right away what it was for. The locked door. Someone, or something, wanted me to open it, and they had already been inside my room. I sat on my bed and stared at the key for a long time. Part of me wanted to throw it out the window. Another part, a louder one, wanted to know what was behind that door. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the key under my pillow and listened to the sounds in the walls. Scratching, breathing, whispers. And under it all, something else. A low humming, like a voice just below hearing. When the candle burned out, the darkness didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the door was already opening, 1 inch at a time. The next morning, I felt different, like something inside me had changed overnight. My skin tingle, my thoughts feel cloudy, like they weren't completely my own. I washed my face in a cracked mirror and stared into my reflection. My eyes looked darker, deeper, almost glowing red for a second before fading back to normal. I blinked, thinking it was just the candlelight. But deep down, I knew something had followed me out of the dream. I didn't remember. Something from behind the door? I took the key again and walked slowly down the hallway toward the locked wing. My footsteps echoed like they were being repeated by someone behind me. When I reached the door, my hand shook as I slid the key into the lock. But before I could turn it, I felt something sharp, like a pinprick in my finger. I looked down. Blood. A tiny drop rolled down to the key and touched the metal. The door gave a soft click and unlocked by itself. I didn't even turn the key. My blood had done it. The door opened just a little. A cold, sweet-smelling wind blew out from inside. The air sparkled, like dust made of tiny stars. I stepped back. This wasn't just any room. It felt like a place pulled out of a dream or a nightmare. I pushed the door open farther. Inside, the hallway twisted in impossible ways. The floor sloped upward, but I was walking down. Paintings moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. A grandfather clock ticked backwards. It was like stepping into a mirror that had forgotten how the world was supposed to work. I followed the hallway until I reached a small room lit by a single hanging lamp. In the center was a table, and on it a silver bowl filled with dark red liquid. The air smelled rich and metallic, like iron and flowers. My head spun. I took a step closer. Then I saw it. A reflection in the bowl that wasn't mine. A pale face with sharp teeth and black eyes stared up at me, grinning. I stumbled back, but the bowl stayed still, as if nothing had happened. Then I noticed something even worse. The reflection was still grinning, even though I was not. I turned to run, but Lord Marin was standing in the doorway. "You've seen it," he said, softly. "The hall has chosen you." He moved closer, slowly, like a shadow sliding across the floor. "You tasted it already, didn't you? When the key took your blood, that was the first sip." His eyes gleamed in the flickering light. I backed away. "What is this place?" I whispered. He smiled, revealing teeth that were just a bit too sharp. "This is the part of the house that remembers the old ways, and it is very, very hungry." I stepped backward, but the door behind me was gone. The hallway had vanished. The walls around the room now pulsed slowly, like they were breathing in and out. The air tasted sweet and bitter at the same time, like fruit left too long in the sun. Lord Marin circled the room like a predator, never blinking. "You're stronger than the others," he said. "You didn't faint, didn't scream." He tilted his head. "That's good. The house only keeps those who endure the first taste." I didn't know what he meant, but I felt something moving beneath my skin, crawling, awakening. The silver bowl shimmered, and the red liquid inside it began to rise, slowly lifting up in the shape of a thin hand. Its fingers stretched toward me, wet and glistening, trembling like it was hungry. I froze. My legs refused to move. Lord Marin stepped aside and whispered, "Offer your hand. Only then will the hall show you what lies beneath." I shook my head. "No," I said. But the bowl pulsed, and the hand rose higher. Then I felt it. A voice, not in my ears, but deep inside me, let us in. Suddenly, the room grew darker, and the floor beneath me began to ripple like water. I stumbled and fell, landing on the wood, but it felt soft, like skin. The candles flickered violently. Shadows gathered around me, whispering in broken words. I could hear my name in their voices. "Elias, Elias, stay with us." I tried to crawl away, but the shadows gripped my arms like cold vines. I screamed, but the sound came out muffled, like I was yelling underwater. Lord Marin only watched, calm as ever, as if this was exactly what he expected. I fought to stand, pushing through the shadows, and reached for my notebook, still tucked in my coat. I didn't know why, but writing felt safe. I pulled it out and opened it. The pages fluttered wildly, then stopped. One page now glowed faintly. It showed a drawing I hadn't made. A door with black mist pouring out and a boy standing in front of it, me. Below it, new words were written. Once tasted, never escape. I slammed the notebook shut and looked around. The room had stopped moving. The hand of blood had vanished. Lord Marin smiled. "You'll understand soon," he whispered. "The house is part of you now." The walls stopped breathing, and the shadows slipped away like smoke. The door appeared behind me once more, creaking open without a sound. I ran through it, back into the long hallway. My heart pounded, and my hand was still bleeding from the tiny cut. I didn't look back, but as I reached my room and shut the door, I saw something on my pillow again. This time, it wasn't a key. It was a tooth. Long, sharp, and still wet.